Lu Shu is an ugly, pathetic, disgusting orphan who was abandoned by his parents. His mother was walking through a dark alley, holding him as a baby in her arms, until she decides to stop by a shop and ask the owner to take care of the baby for a second because she had to buy medicine. As you can guess, she never returned. The owner has to put the baby in her orphanage. But as you can guess, Lu Shu gets picked on all the time. But his friend Lu Xiaoyu helps by reporting it to the caretaker. Lu Xiaoyu is always there for Lu Shu, even when he's sick. Now, Lu Shu is all grown up and no longer at the orphanage, but he feels lonely. He's throwing a rock at a wall when Lu Xiaoyu comes to him, smiling. He smiles back and asks why she sneaked out of the orphanage again. He takes her hand to bring her back, but she refuses, saying she wants to stay with him. He accepts and takes her in. At a festival, Lu Shu hears a couple talking about the news. They mention a boy who emitted a blue light from his hand and another guy who lifted 2,000 kilos. The man argues it might be superpowers or just a fraud. Lu Shu is still eavesdropping when Lu Xiaoyu pulls him away to see a show. They can't see from the back, so Lu Shu takes her hand and pushes toward the front for a better view. As they reach the front, the fire performer throws fire in their direction. Suddenly, time freezes and the fire wraps around him, revealing a memory of a sword rotating in space. His necklace, which he's been wearing for a while, glows brightly for a few seconds, then time resumes. Lu Shu is confused by what just happened. The fire performer continues, creating and throwing fire stylishly, playing with it without getting burned. Lu Shu is mesmerized, wondering if it's magic or superpowers. The show ends with a display of fireworks from the performer. Lu Xiaoyu, amazed, asks Lu Shu how the performer did it. He tells her he has no idea. Lu Shu drops Lu Xiaoyu home and goes for a walk, thinking about the strange events. He crosses the road without noticing a truck speeding towards him. The truck driver tries to avoid hitting him, but it's too late. In his injured and unconscious state, Lu Shu finds himself floating in space, hearing the lullaby his mother sang to him. As he lies on the road, bleeding from his head, memories of his life at the orphanage and with Lu Xiaoyu flash before his eyes. He's losing consciousness when a loading bar appears in the air in front of him. The bar finishes loading, displaying a screen. Lu Shu's necklace glows, floats from his neck into the air, and lifts him up. The necklace's glow intensifies, and it cracks open, engulfing Lu Shu in light. The light enters his heart and travels through his nervous system like a fluid. After this, his heart beats again, and he is gently placed back on the ground. The truck driver, fearing he's killed Lu Shu, emerges from the truck. Lu Shu opens his eyes, recalling the accident but feeling no pain. He wonders if he has superpowers now but focuses on getting compensated. The driver, terrified, sees Lu Shu standing like a zombie and demands payment for being hit. The driver, thinking Lu Shu is a ghost, quickly drives away in fear. Disappointed, Lu Shu goes to a convenience store to get noodles. The cashier is scared seeing the blood on Lu Shu's head, and a positive number plus 233 appears above the cashier's head. Not wanting to scare the man more, Lu Shu drops the cash, takes the noodles, and runs away. He bumps into a couple, making plus 10 appear above their heads too. He goes home, wipes the blood off his head before entering. Lu Xiaoyu sees the bloodstain and asks what happened. He tells her he was hit by a truck, but it's no big deal. Lu Shu takes a shower to wash off the blood and examines himself, confused about why he's not hurt or injured. He looks at his hand and sees a mark on his palm, realizing something shocking about it. Lu Shu is sitting on his bed when he realizes that everything he saw wasn't a dream. He closes his eyes to think, but this activates a display screen in front of him, playing loud game music. Lu Shu is shocked. The display screen shows some writings, then changes to a list of names and points. Lu Shu is confused since he doesn't know these people, but then he remembers seeing numbers appear on people he encountered earlier. He figures out that scaring people makes their negative emotions become his income. Smiling, he concludes that he has awakened superpowers and calls himself the Demon Lord. The more negative emotions he collects, the stronger he becomes, and he starts laughing evilly. Lu Xiaoyu yells at him to be quiet and asks if he's gone insane. He yells back for her to keep cooking and mind her business. Intrigued by his discovery, he wonders how much his income is. He clicks on the lottery button on the display screen and a lottery wheel spins and stops. But he doesn't win. He tries again and doesn't win. On the third try, he wins something. Excited, an apple emerges from the screen and drops into his palm. He bites into it, and the apple glows, making his body glow as it disappears. Lu Shu feels refreshed and nourished. He decides to try the lottery again. His income was 501, but he loses 100 money on each spin. Luckily, on the last spin, he wins again, this time getting a scroll. The scroll contains the lullaby Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Lu Shu is disappointed but decides to sing it. As he sings, everything stops for a while. His core begins to glow, and a bright star from outer space flies down to his room. Lu Shu opens his eyes and finds himself in a space zone with his display screen. He calls out to Lu Xiaoyu, asking if she saw anyone fly out the window. She yells back, asking if he's crazy, and says she didn't see anyone. He wonders how he got there when Lu Xiaoyu asks what she should add to the noodles. He says onions. The display screen then reveals he has received several 10-point gains from Lu Xiaoyu. He realizes this is all from making her angry. He adds that she should also add coriander, which adds more 10 points to his income. Lu Xiaoyu yells at him to come and cook it himself. He tells her she's supposed to be the one cooking, which makes her super angry and earns him 100 points. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu are eating and watching TV when he suddenly senses danger but doesn't know what it is. The breaking news on TV reports a fire at a nearby shopping district. Realizing the danger is close, Lu Shu senses it coming from the roof. He rushes out, telling Lu Xiaoyu to stay inside despite her insistence on following him. Climbing onto the roof, he sees two men in black jumping from one roof to another. One of them looks in his direction, and Lu Shu quickly hides. The men start heading toward his roof. Knowing it's dangerous to be caught and that Lu Xiaoyu needs him, he quickly grabs a basket of dry radish and heads to the ladder to climb down. The men spot him and ask what he's doing on the roof. Sensing danger from them, he pretends he came up to pick the radishes. The men discuss among themselves and decide he seems normal, warning him to be careful as there is danger around. He laughs and rushes back inside. Lu Shu breathes a sigh of relief as he enters the house, but then Lu Xiaoyu asks who he was talking to. He's about to respond when a guy falls from the roof. They rush out to check on him. Lu Shu looks around for the culprit and recognizes the man as the fire performer, Liang Qi. He wonders if Liang Qi started the fire and was escaping from the men in black. He also worries if the fire was big enough to cause victims. Lu Xiaoyu pokes Liang Qi with a stick and asks Lu Shu what they should do. He says he can't revive him, so Lu Xiaoyu should call 120, the emergency number, and make soup for Liang Qi while they wait for the ambulance. But then he says that calling 120 comes with a fee they can't pay. He suggests they claim they don't know Liang Qi, and the hospital would have Liang Qi pay when he wakes up. Lu Shu sees Liang Qi twitch and gains 70 points. Realizing Liang Qi isn't unconscious, Lu Shu gets an evil idea. He tells Lu Xiaoyu they don't have to help, which adds 107 points to his income. She insists they take him inside, but he refuses, making Liang Qi angry and earning Lu Shu a whopping 470 points. Liang Qi stops pretending and wakes up, asking for water. Lu Shu gathers snow and gives it to him, which angers Liang Qi and adds more points for Lu Shu. Liang Qi blows the snow away and turns to Lu Xiaoyu, asking her to help. Lu Shu pins him to the ground, earning 800 points. The more he pushes Liang Qi down, the more negative points he gets. While Lu Xiaoyu is just confused, Liang Qi yells at Lu Shu to stop. But Lu Shu says Liang Qi needs to rest. Suspecting something is up, Liang Qi grabs Lu Shu's hand and ignites it. But Lu Shu's system triggers and quenches the fire. Liang Qi tries again, but the fire is immediately quenched each time, racking up more negative points for Lu Shu. Lu Shu smiles sheepishly. Liang Qi starts apologizing, saying it was just a joke. Lu Shu pretends to believe him, grabbing Liang Qi's hand and squeezing it, earning more points from his pain. He then lets go and offers to call an ambulance, but Liang Qi refuses, standing in anger. Lu Shu wishes him a safe journey home, gaining more negative points from the annoyed Liang Qi. Lu Shu returns to his room and stares at the mark on his hand, realizing that Lu Xiaoyu can't see the negative points like he can. He opens his display screen and clicks on the shop button to see what's available. The only item there manifests from the screen in a bright light and appears in his hand as a yellow ball. Lu Shu sees it's a celestial fruit and eats it. Once again, a bright star from space travels down to Earth and enters his body, tossing Lu Shu's consciousness into the space zone. This time, he sees some planets spinning around a bigger one. One planet is hit with a bright light and starts to glow, followed by another one. Then, a bright light emerges from his body, and Lu Shu wakes up to reality, breathing really fast. He sees his mark has changed a bit. Then he stands and lifts his bed easily. He hears the news on TV reporting casualties from the fire. Lu Shu decides to head there to collect the negative emotions. The next day, he goes to his stand to sell his eggs, charging high prices which angers the people and earns him some negative points. Later, he goes to school. During a free period, a girl yells at some classmates to keep quiet as she tries to watch a video about awakened people posted on a website. Others join her, but Lu Shu doesn't. Instead, he plays the video on his phone. The video explains that the awakened are classified into 6 levels from A to F. Level F is stronger than ordinary people. Level E possesses elemental abilities. Level D can stop weapons effectively. Level C can resist and counter human weapons. Level B can draw strength from heaven and earth, and Level A can resonate with heaven and earth. It also mentions that leveling can be achieved through innate awakening and cultivation, and that congenital awakening will eventually happen to everyone. Lu Shu realizes he's at level F and wonders how leveling up works. He stands from his seat and yells that someone is awakened, drawing his classmates' attention. When they ask who, he smiles and says the website didn't specify, which annoys them and earns him negative points. Just then, a classmate bursts into the room saying someone is really awakened. They think he's referring to the website, but he insists it's real and that it's Lai Kai, a classmate, who is arguing with a teacher and took the teacher to the roof to settle it. They all rush there and see Lai Kai holding a teacher over the roof, threatening to drop him. Lu Shu steps forward and asks their class leader why he's doing this, as it's disturbing the order of the school. This angers the class leader, who yells at him to shut up, earning Lu Shu some negative points. 2 men in black try to stop Lai Kai while the students watch. Lu Shu is bothered that there are many negative emotions around and wonders how to collect them. Lai Kai raises the teacher in the air, ready to throw him down. The principal tells him to reconsider due to legal liability, but Lai Kai says he's underage and won't be punished. Lu Shu steps forward and says he will be punished for his offense, explaining the legal criminal law that covers underage offenses. This shocks and confuses everyone present. By the time he's done, Lu Shu has racked up around 10,000 points. Lai Kai, bored from listening to Lu Shu, loses focus on the situation, allowing the men in black to attack and subdue him, saving the teacher. The situation is resolved, and everyone returns to class. One of Lu Shu's female classmates compliments him for his quick thinking and asks how he knew Lai Kai wouldn't drop the teacher. Lu Shu says he didn't know and wasn't worried about it, annoying the girl and earning him an extra 400 points. Lu Shu returns to class and sees 2 medical officials in full gear with a tray of medical equipment. He remembers that today is the blood test event to find awakened people. The teacher tells him to hurry to his seat so they can start, but Lu Shu tries to escape, lying that he has a stomachache. However, a huge medical officer blocks the door, and Lu Shu's escape plan fails. He is the first person they draw blood from. After school, Lu Shu rushes home because he knows Lu Xiaoyu will be waiting for him and would be upset if he's late. When he opens the door, Lu Xiaoyu is there, asking why he was late. She says she has a headache. Lu Shu checks her forehead and realizes she has a fever. He lets her rest in bed as he treats her. She asks for the baked potatoes he promised her. He assures her he bought them and asks how she got the fever. She says she was outside washing his clothes and the water was cold. Lu Shu tells her to rest while he gets her some medicine. As he steps out of the room, he thinks about getting the stellar fruit that could help cure her fever. He starts with the lottery, spinning it 5 times and not winning anything, which frustrates him. On the 6th try, he wins something, but it's not the fruit. He continues trying and keeps winning, but it's not the fruit. Finally, he returns to the room with a red fruit he won, giving it to Lu Xiaoyu to eat. She takes the fruit, eats it, and feels revitalized and no longer sick. She asks what kind of fruit he gave her, saying it disappeared immediately in her mouth. Lu Shu jokes that it's a devil's fruit, but she doesn't laugh. The next day at school, the teacher announces that the city has started a Daiyuan class for students with special abilities and introduces a man named Roman 11 Fei as the teacher for their Daiyuan class. Lu Shu is shocked because Roman 11 Fei is one of the men in black who were on his roof the night of the fire incident. Roman 11 Fei tells them the teacher will call some students' names, and those students are to come out to join the Daiyuan class. The teacher begins calling names, and the classmates are amazed at some of the names called. When the teacher gets to the last person and reads out Lu Shu's name, everyone is shocked, adding more negative points for Lu Shu. All the Daiyuan students are taken to a special class where Roman 11 Fei announces that he will be their teacher and will teach them cultivation. Lu Shu wonders why they are having a special class, and if the government has signed some sort of confidentiality agreement with the Men in Black group, which is known as the Dragnet organization. Roman 11 Fei starts by saying they will use sodium-potassium alloy because the liquid metal is good for testing human blood and has the potential to react with the aura of the sky and earth. It will help reveal their skills. He holds up a tube containing the alloy and it begins to glow. Lu Shu exclaims that it seems too scientific, but the student beside him says sodium-potassium alloy was used as coolants in nuclear reactors. With the revival of aura returning to Earth, many of these metals have become mediums for aura transmission, and some can be turned into magic items. He says with enough practice, they will be able to have their own magic weapons made from these metals. Lu Shu compliments him on his knowledge. Roman 11 Fei explains that if the blood of the awakened comes in contact with sodium-potassium alloy, the alloy turns from silver to black. The darker the color, the higher the rating of the person. The different color shades from darkest to least dark will group them into classes A to F. Roman 11 Fei explains that 17 months ago, there was a change in the environment. Scientists observed a large number of positrons, which led to the emergence of skills and biological phenomena. It awakened a unique self-cultivation that breaks humanity's path of ignorance. Roman 11 Fei says he will add information about the levels to their study group after the class, but advises that a higher level doesn't make one the best. Being good depends on how one develops their skill over time. He tells them that they are the future of their great nation and should continue working hard. After class, Lu Shu walks with his new friend, Zhang. They pass other classmates who mock Lu Shu for being the lowest level, a class F. Zhang asks if he's not annoyed by their talk, but Lu Shu says he doesn't care. He then texts something to their study group, calling all of them chicken heads, which angers them. But this benefits Lu Shu with negative points from their negative emotions. Since that day, Lu Shu starts eating the stellar fruit to develop his power. It's a gradual process, as he's not leveling up too quickly. He eats the fruit, and it disappears to enrich him like usual. However, his display screen pops up and reveals that he's exhausted his budget for the fruit. The fruit has been transferred from the Wheel of Fortune to the store and will no longer be available to be won from the wheel. He opens his store and sees he can now buy the fruit for 1,000 negative points. He is okay with this and decides to spin the wheel to see what other things he can add to his store. Lu Xiaoyu is eating at the table when she smells something from Lu Shu. She turns to see him holding a bowl of steamy, stinky tofu. She asks him how he got it, and he tells her he won it. She's amazed that he doesn't only win fruit from the wheel, but tasty food as well. He gives it to her to eat, but Lu Xiaoyu says she wants pancakes and fruit now. Lu Shu tries to get it from the wheel, but he keeps getting stinky tofu instead. Lu Xiaoyu is disappointed and starts whining that he's no longer cool since he can't get her pancakes and fruit, asking him what he plans to do about it. Lu Shu doesn't give up and keeps spinning the wheel until he finally gets something new. A scroll emerges from the screen, and Lu Xiaoyu asks what it is. The scroll emits a black light and enters Lu Xiaoyu. A black star emerges from space and enters her. She opens her eyes and finds herself in the celestial zone. She returns to reality and asks Lu Shu what happened. He tells her she must have awakened and asks her to concentrate. She closes her eyes and finds herself back in the celestial zone. Her bigger planet emits a black miasma which enters her body. She opens her eyes and begins to celebrate that she has awakened. Lu Shu is worried, though, because Lu Xiaoyu's celestial map is opposite of his, and he wonders what the two opposite star systems mean. He's also bothered about the multiple stinky tofu items in his inventory and when he will get something new. But then he gets an idea to sell the stinky tofu to make some cash. The next morning, he leaves his house to start his new business, but sees an old man, his neighbor, practicing with a sword. The old man greets him and asks where he's headed. Lu Shu says he's going to make money for his tuition. He asks the old man what he's practicing, and the man tells him it's swordsmanship. The old man asks if Lu Shu wants to learn from him, but Lu Shu says no, which shocks the man, gaining Lu Shu some negative points. The man is disappointed as Lu Shu has the skills and qualities he's looking for in a student. His wife approaches him, saying regardless, Lu Shu doesn't want to learn from him. Lu Shu starts selling the stinky tofu at his stand, and many people patronize him. He also collects negative points from the negative emotions around. With his huge sales, he has enough cash and bounces into school with swagger, annoying his Dayuan classmates. Throughout the rest of the day, he accumulates negative points from his school. After school, he returns home and uses his negative points to summon the golden celestial fruit. He finds himself in his celestial map, but the place is different from before. The 7 planets around the bigger planet are glowing brightly, and the mark on his arm is glowing brightly. He decides to point the marked hand at one of the planets. All the light in it converges in the bigger planet and then emerges upward to form a sword in his hand. He can move the sword around without touching it. He concludes that the planets are 7 nebulous stars and the big one in the middle is his soul. He opens his eyes and tries to see if he can use the sword, which he can summon without touching. He makes the sword spin around his room, and it pierces through some of his books. He is satisfied with this and realizes he achieved this by unlocking 1 nebulous star. If he can break through all 7, he will be strong. At their next Dayuan class, Roman 11 Fei is examining a student through a divine circle while the others watch. The stone in his hand glows. Lu Shu asks what the stone is, and Zhang says it's a spirit stone containing a lot of energy. They will receive their own in the next few days to use for practice. They focus on the demonstration as Roman 11 Fei tells the students to return and keep practicing since he hasn't reached his goal yet, shocking the class. He explains they will be called up to practice and report progress on their training. He tells them about a technique called 2-Instrument Contract Metaphysics chapter, promising increased performance. Lu Shu practices the technique with his stone, emitting a large bright light from him into his celestial map. However, his sword becomes violent and collides with the light, extinguishing it. Lu Shu opens his eyes, breathing heavily, wondering why his celestial map is so violent and concluding Roman 11 Fei's teaching is of no use. The next day, Lu Shu goes out to his stall but sees the old neighbor training with his sword. He asks the man about his sword, and the man asks if he wants to learn. Lu Shu says he would like to, but there's a problem. The man tells him to start training, and then they can discuss his problem. Lu Shu returns in the evening after his day's activities to begin training with the old man. The old man gives him a range of weight belts, from the lightest at 30 pounds to the heaviest at 300 pounds, instructing him to wear them during training. Lu Shu argues that the techniques from the Dayuan class already teach them how to increase strength directly. The old man explains that Shizujin is a leader who aims to transmit the 3 teachings of Taoism, emphasizing that no one is better than him when it comes to training, but Lu Shu should understand it requires practice to reach that level. As the old man continues talking, Lu Shu wonders if Shizujin is a member of the Heavenly Network and the one who designs exercises for their class. The old man insists that Lu Shu cannot skip any steps in his training, advising him to start with the easiest weight belt and work his way up to the hardest. Lu Shu casually picks up the lightest belt and tosses it in the air like it's paper, catching it effortlessly. He asks the old man if they can skip to the heaviest belt, which angers the old man. He explains that Lu Shu's power system has been awakened, which allows him to handle such tasks with ease. The old man then picks up a piece of paper from his table, and Lu Shu wonders what he plans to do with it. Concentrating intensely, the old man envelops the paper in mana energy, straightening it out, and then lifts it up. With a swift swing, the paper releases a powerful flow of energy that travels through the ground and cuts a nearby wall neatly in half. Lu Shu watches in amazement as the old man demonstrates the potency of focus technique. The old man advises Lu Shu that it's better to master one thing than to dabble in many, and despite all the tricks, the way of the sword reigns supreme. He tosses Lu Shu a rusted sword and instructs him to use it to cut the air. Lu Shu takes a stance and begins practicing, but the old man steps in to correct his posture. He notes that Lu Shu wants to be strong, but lacks perfect control of his body, reminding him that muscle has no memory, only talent. As Lu Shu sheds his jacket and focuses more effectively, he begins swinging the sword with more precision and style. After swinging the sword 1,000 times, Lu Shu finally masters the first step of the sword technique. The next day at school, Lu Shu's display shows that Shizujin is at his house. He quickly runs out of school towards home and finds Lu Xiaoyu and the old man outside with Shizujin. Lu Xiaoyu asks why he's there, and Shizujin explains he came to retrieve something, prompting her to rush inside to help him. Shizujin then turns to Lu Shu and asks who he is. Lu Shu introduces himself as a student from a nearby school. Shizujin inquires if Lu Shu is the old man's student, but the old man scoffs, stating he can't teach a level F student like Lu Shu. He dismisses Shizujin, who leaves promptly. Lu Shu notices that Shizujin is a level B, and he asks the old man if Shizujin is part of the top board in the Heavenly Network. The old man clarifies that Shizujin is just an ordinary person in the network and a level B commoner. He reassures Lu Shu not to worry, as no one will suspect he's teaching him. Lu Shu then asks if Shizujin offended the old man in any way, but the old man assures him everything is fine, quoting a saying about friends from afar not needing a formal welcome. Before leaving, the old man gives Lu Shu a test tube containing sodium-potassium alloy and asks him to check their levels. Lu Shu ensures the coast is clear before conducting the tests that night, hoping that the celestial fruit he consumed earlier would have an effect. Lu Xiaoyu also participates, and both of their test tubes turn dark once their blood is placed in the sodium-potassium alloy. Lu Shu checks his tube and sees that it has turned a dark shade resembling that of level A, which surprises him. However, the tubes begin to bubble, and Lu Shu's changes to blue, while Lu Xiaoyu's develops a dark swirl. They both notice that the patterns in the alloy resemble their celestial maps. Lu Shu wonders if there is a level higher than level A. Lu Shu begins to meditate in his room. 2 nebulous stars in his celestial map light up, and when he opens his eyes, he notices a blue light layer over his body. He picks up a knife from his table and cuts himself with it, but there is no injury. He realizes that this is the second layer of nebula, providing protection against injuries. He wonders how Lu Xiaoyu is progressing with her awakening. Meanwhile, Lu Xiaoyu is tossing in her bed, awakening in her celestial map where all her nebula stars are very dark. One of the stars awakens and enlarges, almost sucking her in like a black hole. In the morning, Lu Shu goes to her room to wake her up and finds her standing on her bed with black eyes. Calling to her, her eyes clear to normal, and she hugs him, saying she has awakened 1 nebula star. Lu Shu congratulates her, but boasts that he has already awakened 2 nebula stars, which makes her pout at him. He asks if she can show him what her star looks like, but she says she can't, demonstrating instead what she can do, summoning an ant onto her palm. She explains that her powers allow her to sense the energy of deceased beings around her. The ant had died the previous day, and she was sad about it, but now she can summon it back and control it. Lu Shu places his finger on her palm, and the ant climbs onto it. He is amazed at how realistic the ant looks. Curious, he asks if she can do more. They go outside to test her abilities further. Lu Xiaoyu demonstrates her powers by creating a small black bird that flies around and perches on Lu Shu's shoulder. He asks her how long she can control the bird and if it drains her strength. She explains that her abilities are not time-bound and do not weaken her. She adds that the energy is condensed by the black hole, requiring less effort to control. One night, Lu Xiaoyu wakes up with dark eyes, but they quickly clear as she rushes excitedly to Lu Shu's room, knocking loudly. Lu Shu comes out, asking what the fuss is about, only to see a man standing in front of him, summoned by Lu Xiaoyu. The man had been seen by Lu Shu the previous night, committing a robbery and murder. Deciding to intervene, Lu Shu uses his powers surrounded by a protective nebula light to defend himself. He counters the man's attacks and summons his magic sword from his celestial map, which injures the man fatally and unalived him. The sword returns to Lu Shu afterward. Lu Shu had planned this to test Lu Xiaoyu's abilities, and she demonstrated she could summon the man as she promised. Lu Shu admits he wasn't scared, just surprised at her progress. He asks if she can control her powers, and she confirms she can make him do what she wants just by thinking it. She demonstrates by making the man take a fighting stance. Lu Shu, in a serious tone, warns her never to reveal her powers to anyone. Lu Xiaoyu agrees and reveals she also learned from the man's memories where he hid the stolen money. She shows Lu Shu the memory where the man and 2 others, all awakened, buried the money on a hilltop. The next day at school, students gather on the sports field for the inauguration of their new director, Lai Yixiao. Lai Yixiao tells them briefly to study hard and dismisses them, leaving everyone surprised. In their Dayuan class, Lai Yixiao and Roman 11 Fei show a video of 3 fugitives from a recent incident, 1D level and 2E level, with the D level being the man Lu Shu had fought. Lai Yixiao asks if the students can handle such fugitives. Roman 11 Fei signals to Lai Yixiao, who then dons a robe and introduces himself formally as their future superior in the Heavenly Network, with a code name and a B-level ranking. He explains that a suspicious level C person was also spotted that night, who outmatched the D-level fugitive with a sword and energy shield. Lai Yixiao instructs them to report any sightings of this level C individual to him or Roman 11 Fei. He ends on a positive note, announcing that starting that month, they will receive monthly resources for cultivation, spirit stones. After class, Lu Shu asks Zhang if spirit stones can be sold on the black market. Zhang wonders why Lu Shu wants to sell them when he needs them for his own cultivation. Lu Shu explains he's just curious and feels that if he's always worried about money, he won't be able to focus on his practice effectively, even with spirit stones. Zhang mentions they can be sold for around 100,000 yuan each, which excites Lu Shu. He immediately asks Zhang if he wants to buy them, but Zhang declines, saying he'll ask around instead. Lu Shu insists on setting the price at 120,000 yuan. Lu Shu sends his account number for the transaction, and Zhang takes the stones, promising to send him the money once he finds a buyer. Later, Lu Shu returns home and starts meditating again. This time, he becomes more enlightened and activates a third nebula star. Lu Shu believes he'll soon reach level C. As he goes out for a walk, he receives a call from an unknown number. It turns out to be his teacher, who urgently tells him to hurry to school as the car leaves soon and he must not be absent. The armored car takes all of them to their mission. Lu Shu asks where they are going. Zhang says a ruin has opened up, and they are going to protect the territory. Lu Shu asks if they aren't going into the ruin. Zhang says they aren't because he's just a level E, and the organization fears they can't defend themselves yet, especially someone like Lu Shu who is still a level F. Lu Shu asks what these ruins are. Zhang says the ruins are believed to be left on Earth by an alien civilization, like otherworldly spaces. The ruins started appearing recently due to changes in the environment. He says wherever these ruins appear, they attract many masters who fight for them because they contain herbs, magic tools, and most importantly, the Formation Eye. If someone gets the Formation Eye, the whole ruin disappears. Lu Shu comments that this all sounds mysterious, but then Zhang whispers to him that this ruin is the only one opened in the country so far. They arrive at the ruin site. Roman 11 Fei explains that the mission is confidential and that they wanted them to get involved for experiential learning. Anyone who leaks or speaks about the mission will not just be dismissed, but court-martialed. The students are shocked, but agree. They settle in and practice their cultivation, but Lu Shu chooses to disturb the class leader, and earns some negative points as he distracts the class leader. Lu Shu and Zhang go for a walk in the camp and see the mountain ahead covered in mist. Lu Shu asks what the mist is. Zhang says it's a form of a portal to the ruin. Suddenly, the alarms start blaring as the mist begins to draw close. Lai Yixiao and Roman 11 Fei yell at them to retreat and evacuate the mountain to avoid getting caught in it. But the mist moves fast, and most of them end up covered in it. Lu Shu and Zhang are also trapped in the mist, which drags them in. Lu Shu is tossed into the mist and falls hard onto the ground in a strange area. He stands to examine his surroundings when suddenly an axe flies towards him, which he narrowly dodges. He sees a skeleton zombie approaching with an axe in hand. The skeleton starts attacking him, but he dodges all the swings. He then catches the axe, removes it from the zombie's hand, and throws the zombie to the ground, smashing it into pieces. However, the skeleton continues crawling towards him. He uses the axe to cut off the zombie's head, finally killing it. He's relieved he found a way to defeat the zombie. He spots two more zombies approaching and prepares to fight them, easily taking them down, but just then, other students run towards him, yelling for him to flee. One classmate urges him to run, and he turns to see they're being chased by many zombies. One of the zombies jumps on a student, killing him. Lu Shu swiftly beheads the attacking zombie with his axe and begins dispatching the others as they swarm him. He manages to eliminate most of them, but one sneaks up from behind. He barely blocks its attack with his axe, and they fall to the ground, grappling with it. Lu Shu. One student asks another if they should help, but the scared student suggests waiting to see if Lu Shu can handle it alone. Lu Shu finally rolls over and beheads the zombie. He approaches the frightened students and asks about their plan. They suggest staying put since the zombies are gone and the ruin might disappear soon. Lu Shu asks what they'll do if he decides to leave. A girl among them begs him to stay and protect them. He advises them to run if they see zombies approaching. He tells them the zombies stop chasing after a certain distance and to use the axe to behead them if they come too close. One student suggests it's best if he stays, but Lu Shu decides otherwise. He leaves the axe for them and walks away, telling them to use it. The girl tells the group that if they had helped him, he wouldn't have left them. They then decide who among them will take the axe. Lu Shu wanders alone in the area, thinking about Xiaoyu when suddenly he hears footsteps. He prepares to attack, and around the corner, a zombie horseman emerges, almost spearing him. Lu Shu catches the spear, and they struggle over it. The zombie gets angry and earns an income point, surprising Lu Shu with its emotions. He decides to use this to his advantage, dragging the spear from the zombie, causing it to fall. More zombie horsemen approach, and Lu Shu runs, leading them on a chase. He climbs a hill to evade them, but they continue pursuing him. The cavalry captain commands his men to shoot at Lu Shu, who dodges and climbs higher. The captain tells the zombies to stop, angering them and earning more negative points. Lu Shu hides, watching his display screen tally up the points. The cavalry captain orders his men to retreat, while the sad zombie Lu Shu disarmed watches as the others follow with their spears. Lu Shu descends and gathers weapons, a sword, an axe, and the spear filled with man energy. He swings the spear like a sword. The zombies return and ambush him, but using the spear, he defeats them easily, collecting their spears and tying them to his back before continuing his journey. He finds a secluded spot on a cliff, meditates, and uses his accumulated negative points to level up. He chooses a celestial fruit from the options, consuming it to enlighten himself as 3 new nebula stars fill his celestial map with power. Energized, he presses on. Meanwhile, Heavenly Network officials work to gather the students of the Dayuan class. They discuss how easily frightened the students are and their inability to fight. They decide their first move should be targeting the zombie cavalry captain to protect the remaining students. They acknowledge it would be ideal if all the students were like Lu Shu, realizing he's not as weak as they initially thought. They hear footsteps and hide, spotting the zombie army passing by. They breathe a sigh of relief, but are shocked when a spear filled with man energy disintegrates one of the zombie horsemen. They see Lu Shu throwing the spear and jumping down the hill, swiftly dispatching more zombies before they can react. The leader orders his men to assist Lu Shu, but he handles the situation effortlessly, exhausting the spear's power before switching to his sword to eliminate the remaining foes. Calmly, Lu Shu turns to the leader, who approaches with the other saved students, wondering what's happening. Some worry for Lu Shu's safety, but when the leader reaches him to speak, Lu Shu calmly stretches out his hand, claiming all the weapons, which angers the leader and earns him more negative points. Lu Shu begins gathering all the weapons, and the leader asks if he's Lu Shu. Curious, Lu Shu asks how the leader knows his name. The leader explains that 2 students from the Luo City special class mentioned him, referring to the ones Lu Shu had initially saved. Prepared for a fight, Lu Shu stands his ground, but the leader assures him they have no intention of fighting. They're just ordinary warriors of the Heavenly Network and no match for him. Lu Shu decides to only give them the swords, but the leader insists they don't want any weapons or armor. Lu Shu calms down and asks if they're acting alone, which they confirm. Lu Shu questions why they didn't take out the zombie cavalry and where they've been hiding. The leader can't answer, so Lu Shu asks what he plans to do with all the weapons he's gathered since he can't use them alone. Just then, more students approach, and Lu Shu gets a brilliant idea. He announces that he's selling the spears, swords, and armor to anyone interested, marketing them as the best weapons ever for 999 yuan each, on a first-come, first-served basis. But Lu Shu realizes there's no cash, so no one can pay. A student approaches him asking for a sword. Lu Shu spots a valuable jade pendant on the student and offers to trade a sword for it. The student angrily declines, losing negative points to Lu Shu. The students and officials murmur among themselves about what to do. An official approaches Lu Shu with a wristwatch valued at 12,000 yuan, offering to trade it for a sword. Lu Shu accepts without hesitation, trading the sword for the wristwatch. Lu Shu continues making sales as officials trade various items for weapons, ending up with a stack of jewelry, much to the leader's disappointment. They resume their journey, weary from walking. While Lu Shu hums to himself happily about his sales, they decide to rest for the night, but suddenly a strong wind blows and a threat approaches. The leader warns everyone to stay alert as ghostly figures fly around them in the air. Lu Shu senses that the energy from the ghosts feels like Xiaoyu's energy. He feels the sword in his celestial map reacting to the ghostly presence and struggles to keep it contained. As he wrestles with it, his eyes glow, and the ghosts see him burning with spirit energy, frightening them into fleeing. Everyone is confused by the sudden retreat, but Lu Shu smiles, knowing he's the reason they fled. They continue their journey and finally reach the core of the ruin, bringing a sense of relief and accomplishment to everyone. Inside the cave, Lu Shu begins selling the remaining weapons to other officials and students who gather around. One student from another class approaches him, hoping to meet the master who defeated the cavalry zombies, only to realize Lu Shu is the one selling the weapons. Disappointed, the students start trading amongst themselves to acquire weapons. Lu Shu's classmate cuts through the crowd and informs him that the master of the Heavenly Network wishes to meet him. He approaches the officials, adorned in jewelry, which annoys Roman 11 Fei and the leader, who are surprised by Lu Shu's actions. Roman 11 Fei introduces him to Zhang Yutang, a Class C official in charge of the ruin during their stay. Zhang acknowledges Lu Shu and another student, Cao, for standing out in their respective groups and mentions they will need their assistance. He instructs Lu Shu to stop selling spears, to which Lu Shu agrees, showing off the jewelry he's accumulated. Accompanied by officials and Cao, they approach a hole in the cave. Zhang emits energy from within and reports that the hole is 100 meters deep with a cave inside. He warns them that this ruin is larger and more unique than any they've encountered, urging caution. Zhang orders an official to create stairs down into the cave using her earth abilities, followed by markings on the walls to illuminate the way. They descend, and Lu Shu is amazed to find light below that wasn't visible from above. A powerful gust of wind rushes upwards from the cave bottom, causing Lu Shu's chest to glow as his sword reacts to the wind. Lai Yixiao urges them to press on. At the cave's bottom, they enter a brightly lit area and are transported in front of an ancient castle. An army of zombies pours out from the castle gate, led by the cavalry captain with a distinct spear. He declares they won't escape and must stay. Lai Yixiao challenges him, stating they'll only stay if allowed into the castle, setting up a tense standoff. Lai Yixiao instructs officials to engage the cavalry captain, secretly hoping to obtain the captain's spear, potentially the formation eye, to make the ruin disappear and earn praise. Lai Yixiao attacks with fiery speed, but the captain defends with his spear, resulting in a fierce clash. Lai Yixiao's efforts overshadow the captain, and when the smoke clears, the captain escapes the attack, but his horse is slain, enraging him further. Undeterred, Lai Yixiao taunts him, fueling his anger. Meanwhile, the officials launch their attack on the zombie army, and the battle ensues. Lu Shu, disinterested in the fight, decides to search for treasure instead of joining the battle. Sneaking around amidst the chaos, he slips into the castle. Lu Shu presses forward into the castle, his sword glowing in response to the surroundings, putting him on high alert. Sensing someone watching him, he remains vigilant and continues exploring. Entering a room, he suddenly receives a message from Lu Xiaoyu on his display screen. She scolds him for being late and worries about him, which earns Lu Shu some negative points. He wonders if Lu Xiaoyu is so concerned that she can't sleep. As he contemplates this, a ghost that has been following and watching him attempts to ambush him. Lu Shu swiftly dodges the attack, bending back as his sword emerges from his body, piercing and extinguishing the ghost. Moving deeper into the castle, Lu Shu finds furry friend who rides on his shoulder. As they head towards the city center, he opens a door, expecting to find a demon inside. In the hall, Lu Shu finds it lined with statues of samurai warriors. Admiring their spears, he considers selling them. As he moves closer to one statue, he senses something behind him and turns to see the statues coming to life, their eyes glowing red. The statue nearest to him moves menacingly, and the others in the room begin to gather around him, preparing to attack. Lu Shu readies his spear, and his sword also emerges, ready for battle. However, when the statues notice his sword, they step back into position. Lu Shu, seeing this, puts away his spear and holds his sword closer. He approaches the statue nearest to him and demands the spear. But the statue refuses, and its defiance earns Lu Shu some negative points. He threatens it with his sword, and the statue lets go and Lu Shu retrieves the spear. He repeats this with the other statues until he collects all the spears. At the end of the hall, Lu Shu finds a table with a scroll containing information about an escape route, which he reads. Meanwhile, the cavalry captain, still engaged in battle with Lai Yixiao, suddenly ceases fighting and rushes into the castle, leaving his spear with the director. Lai Yixiao is frustrated that the spear isn't the formation eye, as the ruin hasn't disappeared. The cavalry captain storms into the hall, demanding to know what happened to their spears from the statues. Spotting Lu Shu at the end of the table, he rushes towards him to stop him from holding the seal. As Lu Shu raises the seal, the cavalry captain reaches him just as the seal falls into Lu Shu's hands. Time seems to freeze momentarily as the seal is absorbed into Lu Shu's chest, and everything around them starts to get absorbed into the glowing seal. The zombie army nearly overwhelms the officials, but time stops and everyone turns to dust. The castle, the ruin, and everything within it begin to disintegrate, disappearing into the seal Lu Shu now holds. He takes the spear for himself, ensuring it doesn't turn to dust along with the rest of the ruin. Back in the real world, the mist on the mountain begins to disappear, and all the people who were inside the ruin start reappearing outside. The relief is palpable among the survivors as they hug their friends, grateful to be alive. The officials set up a camp to treat the injured and gather information on everyone's survival. Roman 11 Fei is busy recording data when Zhang rushes in, worried because Lu Shu is nowhere to be found. Roman 11 Fei angrily defends Lu Shu's sacrifice and suggests Zhang search for his body. To everyone's surprise, Lu Shu walks in covered in jewels and carrying several spears, stunning and confusing everyone. Zhang goes to greet him, relieved that Lu Shu is safe. Lu Shu explains that Cao instructed him to come register and return his weapons. He goes to drop off the spear he brought, accidentally breaking the table with its weight during registration. Afterwards, Lu Shu takes a walk to find Lu Xiaoyu, whose negative emotions have earned him numerous negative points. He spots Lu Xiaoyu's favorite snack wrapper on the ground and looks up to see her sitting on a tree branch. He extends his hand for a hug, but she jumps down onto his face. Lu Shu tries to talk to her, telling her she should have waited for him at home, but she ignores him and checks his condition. Satisfied that he's alright, she picks up her snack wrapper and Lu Shu squats down to her level. She sheds tears of relief, happy that he's fine and wasn't hurt. She then drags him home, where Lu Shu freshens up. He closes the window and asks Lu Xiaoyu to summon the level D criminal, which she does. Using his power, Lu Shu creates 2 pearls, one dark and one bright. Lu Xiaoyu asks about them, and Lu Shu explains that the pearls enhance energy bodies. The dark pearl was made by his sword from the absorbed energies of the ghosts in the ruin, while the bright one came from a special ghost he encountered. Lu Shu decides to test the dark pearl on the level D criminal's energy body. As soon as he feeds it to him, the man yells out and his power surges dramatically, causing him to laugh uncontrollably. Lu Shu is surprised by how quickly the pearl increased the man's power. Lu Xiaoyu, however, is not pleased, saying Lu Shu has broken him with the incessant laughter. She calls him back, making the man disappear. Trying to cheer her up, Lu Shu reveals another gift, 2 fruits he obtained from the ruin. This excites Lu Xiaoyu, and she eagerly eats them. The furry that has been following Lu Shu emerges from his back into the room and starts chirping at her. She finds it adorable and cuddles its cute face, asking Lu Shu how he acquired it. He explains it's a friend he met in the ruin, a clever one. Lu Xiaoyu decides to name the furry Little Fiery Zoo after teasing it with various names. She feeds it a chip, and the furry stops its antics to enjoy the snack. She places it near the chip bag, promising more chips if it behaves, and Little Fiery Zoo agrees obediently. Lu Shu marvels at how easily she has the furry following her with just chips. Lu Shu examines the seal from the ruin in his room and discovers its extraordinary abilities. By meditating, he projects his consciousness into the seal, where he experiences flying over the surrounding landscape, controlled by the seal's powers. He realizes it's a divine artifact capable of observing Earth and manipulating aura. Reflecting on the cavalry general's interest in the seal, he regrets being unable to practice with it directly. He notices a second seal within the first, swirling with darkness. Intrigued, he enters it with his consciousness and finds himself in a vast space. There, he discovers hidden spears and a large, closed door reflecting the ruined castle. Determined, he pushes against the door, managing to open it slightly. Peering through, he sees the castle and realizes he can access it whenever he strengthens his ability to fully open the door. This revelation fills him with anticipation for future explorations through the seal. Later, Lu Shu reads a paper containing Lu Xiaoyu's application, feeling worried about her. However, he decides to lift his spirits by playing the lottery on his display screen. Each time, though, he ends up with stinky tofu, disappointing him. He keeps trying, but all he gets are bowls of food he doesn't need. Frustrated after many attempts, he lies on his bed, hoping for better luck. Using his leg to tap the button this time, his luck changes. He wins a pearl that looks like a sea fruit. He consumes it, and time stops briefly. A white star falls from space into Earth and into his body, enlightening him. He finds himself in a different celestial space, cloudy and misty, enjoying the comfort but feeling disappointed when it doesn't last long. Determined, he tries for another one. Lu Shu steps outside where the old man is seated. They exchange greetings, acknowledging it's been a while since they last met. Lu Shu credits his training with the old man for helping him survive in the ruin, noting he would have been in trouble without it. Curious about joining the organization, Lu Shu asks what they fight for. The old man explains that the Heavenly Network organization fights to safeguard humanity's interests and aims for world peace. Lu Shu scoffs at the idea, which annoys the old man and earns Lu Shu some negative points. Lu Shu clarifies he's not mocking him but believes that true peace is subjective like for him. Living peacefully with Lu Xiaoyu is enough. The old man takes Lu Shu's sword and walks away, explaining that if everyone thought like him, everyone would pursue their own destinies. However, there are people who misuse power, becoming lawless and bullying others. The organization aims to balance this strength and weakness. The old man mentions they will start swordsmanship training soon, but advises Lu Shu to follow the path of cultivating his spiritual body, which is integral to their practice. He demonstrates by releasing sword energy into the sky, causing rain to fall briefly. He attributes this to using the Seven Seas snow mountain, linked to the sea fruit Lu Shu consumed. Lu Shu asks when he'll have enough practice. The old man explains it's too early and suggests focusing on envisioning the power needed. Lu Shu visualizes a rain cloud and focuses on his sword, generating a small whirlwind. He thrusts forward, slicing a falling leaf in two, amazed at his progress. Lu Shu returns inside to find Lu Xiaoyu just waking up. She asks who he was talking to, and he tells her to sit down, sharing the good news: she can start school. Lu Xiaoyu protests loudly, insisting it's not good news and she won't go. Lu Shu argues that she's been living with him since running away from the orphanage. They can afford what they need, and she can't stay home all day. Lu Xiaoyu agrees, not wanting to lose her favorite food. Lu Shu is pleased his strategy worked. Lu Shu takes Lu Xiaoyu to her new school, where she complains that the school bag he gave her is childish. He tells her to stop fussing, reminding her that everyone has a school bag. He leans in and whispers for her not to show her strength or get into fights with her classmates. Reluctantly, she agrees, still pouting. Lu Shu assures her that the right time will come for her to reveal her abilities. At his own school, Roman 11 Fei warmly welcomes Lu Shu and thanks him for joining the organization. He announces that Lu Shu will be promoted directly to lieutenant due to his contributions in the ruin, which makes Lu Shu excited about the prospect of a higher salary. Roman 11 Fei surprises him by hugging him warmly, welcoming him as a new colleague. Roman 11 Fei then goes to greet Cao and the others. Lu Shu is taken aback, as this is the first time someone has been so warm and welcoming to him. Lai Yixiao steps up to the podium, and Roman 11 Fei calls the students to line up. Lai Yixiao welcomes them to the foundation and begins his speech, though he stumbles over his lines and pulls out a paper to read. He delivers the speech, noting the foundation's history and emphasizes the challenges ahead, urging them to persevere despite the risks. Lai Yixiao administers the oath, which all the students take, albeit some nervously. He bids them farewell and steps down from the podium. Lu Shu continues his training with the old man, who introduces him to the Dianzi techniques known for their significant effects with minimal effort. The old man compares these techniques to a dragonfly causing ripples in a river despite its light weight. Lu Shu diligently practices sword swinging as instructed, focusing on the cumulus cloud within the cloudy realm. Initially, the cloud reacts aggressively, but Lu Shu persists and begins to gain some control over its movements. Despite his progress, fully mastering the cloud proves challenging. The old man advises him on the patience required, noting that manipulating a cumulus cloud to rain is no simple task. Lu Shu reflects on the contrast between exerting physical strength in sword practice and the delicate control needed for manipulating the cloud. The old man shares his belief that the people in the past feared the day of cloud collapse, which Lu Shu surprisingly finds exciting rather than alarming. Undeterred by Lu Shu's unconventional perspective, the old man continues training him in sword techniques. Together, they enter the cloud realm, where Lu Shu impressively gains control over the clouds, successfully summoning rain. In the real world, Lu Shu's sword swing creates a powerful wave, demonstrating a sound martial art technique. The old man recognizes the accomplishment, impressed by Lu Shu's progress and skill. Lu Shu asks what that means, as he's unfamiliar with the term, earning himself some negative points from the old man. When Lu Shu wonders aloud why he can turn clouds into rain, the old man cautions him against too much pride, explaining that there are further steps ahead, turning rain into a river, and a river into an ocean. He explains that the Seven Seas snow mountain is ever evolving, requiring continuous training. Grateful, the old man accepts Lu Shu's offer to take Lu Xiaoyu for a summer trip, as he's tired of reading books all day. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu board a bus for their trip. Lu Shu spots an acquaintance, the priest, but they don't speak. Lu Xiaoyu happily settles into her seat. A group enters who seem to have issues with Lu Shu, evident from their disdainful looks. Once the bus is full, the tour guide introduces himself and outlines the trip, visiting Mount Ryu, camping by a nearby lake, and then ascending the mountain. Lu Shu observes his acquaintance, who is focused on a compass in his hands. The tour guide shares the legend of Mount Ryu with them. Arriving at the lake, everyone sets up tents. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu gaze out over the lake. Lu Shu asks her about her happiest moment, and she initially mentions seeing him buy vegetables and cook dinner. Pressed to be serious, she admits that eating together is her true happiness. Lu Shu smiles, recalling their shared meals as his happiest times too. Suddenly, he senses something and turns to see Liang Qi driving past them on a motorcycle. He wonders where the magic performer is headed, noting that the dragnet hasn't caught him yet and sensing that Liang Qi's energy has leveled up. When Lu Xiaoyu asks what's wrong, Lu Shu brushes it off, saying it's nothing. It's nighttime, and Lu Shu escorts Lu Xiaoyu to her tent, even though she protests that he's treating her like a child with bedtime rules even outdoors. As they settle in, Lu Shu notices a convoy of cars passing by, carrying Liang Qi and his former acquaintance. Intrigued, Lu Shu decides to follow them to a clearing ahead where the cars have parked. He wonders if there might be a ruin in that area. He considers reporting the situation but hesitates. Just then, Zhang calls out to him, asking why he's there. Lu Shu explains he brought Lu Xiaoyu on a trip, and Zhang informs him that the area is rumored to soon have a ruin appearing. The organization is investigating, and they were about to look for Lu Shu to join them. Zhang mentions that students from the Daeyuan class who performed well have been granted access to enter the ruin. Lu Shu accepts the offer, reasoning that since he's already there, he might as well join them. The next day, some passengers argue with the tour guide about the trip's abrupt end. They demand refunds, but the guide explains that only the travel agency can issue refunds. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu approach the group, and the tour guide asks where they're headed. Lu Shu reveals they're going to the Chalk Salt Lake and mentions the upcoming ruin, which surprises the others. Lu Shu, Lu Xiaoyu, and Zhang proceed to cross the barricade to the lake. The guard initially stops Lu Xiaoyu for lacking an appropriate document, but Zhang presents a document that convinces the guard to let them pass after verification with his superior. They arrive at the camp set up by the lake, and Lu Xiaoyu is impressed by the preparations made for the ruin operation. The following day, practitioners from a rival organization gather to participate in the ruin operation to infiltrate it. The leader addresses them, announcing the imminent opening of the new ruin and assigning himself as their leader. Their goal is to eliminate any obstacles in the ruin and destroy the Formation Eye. Everyone prepares, and they begin entering the ruin through the mist. Lu Shu advises Lu Xiaoyu that if they get separated in the ruins, she should make her way to the ruin center, where he will meet her. Then they enter the mist. Lu Xiaoyu is happy to finally fight alongside him. Lu Shu emerges in the ruins, finding himself in a forest. Other practitioners begin complaining about the strange surroundings. Lu Shu remembers Zhang's advice about the fluctuating spiritual energy in ruins, and search for the thicker energy associated to the center of the ruin, which he finds. Following his group into the nightfall, they reach a clearing in the forest and decide to press on to find another group. Lu Shu suggests camping there, noting animal bones and peculiar trees, but they dismiss his concerns and continue without him. Lu Shu stays behind, cautioning them to run if they encounter danger, and worries about Lu Xiaoyu. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu searches the forest for Lu Shu and encounters animals. A cat hisses at her, but she makes faces at it. Suddenly, a large boar approaches aggressively, but she summons her bodyguard, a man from the Class D, who laughs and scares off the boar. By morning, she has tamed the boar and rides it. Encountering a group who are astonished by her skills, she claims to be the beast controller. She asks if they've seen Lu Shu and heads in the direction they indicate. Lu Shu, perched on a branch, spots another group approaching. They are seeking a safe spot to camp before sunset. Lu Shu listens to their conversation and thinks of how to gather negative points of them. As they settle in an open space, their leader warns of approaching animals, but it was Lu Shu as he reveals himself. When asked where he is from, he jokes about flying in from the east, which annoys the group and earns him negative points on his display screen. Reflecting on his accrued points, he realizes one name is in numbers, indicating a possible spy. Joining the group on their journey, Lu Shu strategizes on how to trap the spy, considering how to make them let down their guard. When a leopard almost pounces on a practitioner, Lu Shu springs into action, saving the young man. The group's leader and two officials question Lu Shu's actions. He explains he chased the animal away instead of killing it, since that would be cruel, which earns mixed reactions but more negative points. His screen displays his point he accrued, but then sees one of the officials has the number as name. Lu Shu suspects they might be the spy. Lu Shu is enjoying his stinky tofu while the spy watches him closely. Shortly after, the spy launches his attack, putting everyone else to sleep. Unaware of this, Lu Shu goes in search of the spy. As he runs through the forest, vines attempt to ensnare him, but he effortlessly slices through them. From a tree, Lu Shu calls out to the spy, who moves to attack. Lu Shu easily counters, kicking him in the face and grazing his chin. Revealing the seal on his palm, Lu Shu summons his spear, surprising the spy. Despite the spy's attempts to fight back, Lu Shu disarms him and throws him to the ground. The spy throws knives at Lu Shu, who dodges them and retaliates by throwing his spear, narrowly missing the spy and slicing the tree. With the spy backed against the tree, Lu Shu strips him of his clothes and weapons, demanding to know how many spies there are. The spy claims he's alone, but Lu Shu doesn't believe him, bluffing to the spy that he's a special agent from Skynet sent to catch spies, and that he was responsible for neutralizing the spy at the mountain. The spy admits there are others with code names, revealing that they were ordered to kill Chen Bailey. He shares the secret code to contact the others based on their zodiac sign code names. Lu Shu acknowledges they wouldn't stand a chance if caught by Chen Bailey. The spy confesses their mission and asks for mercy, which Lu Shu agrees to. However, before they can further discuss, vines attack and drag the spy into a tree, despite Lu Shu's attempts to save him. Everyone wakes up, and it's discovered that teacher Lai Lai is missing, unknowingly revealed as the spy. The leader decides to search for him, with some students volunteering to help. Despite their efforts throughout the night, they find no trace of him and are exhausted. The leader reluctantly decides to halt the search to avoid risking more lives. Lu Shu, happy with the points he earned from the spy, attempts to unlock his 7th star on his celestial map. However, to his frustration, the 7th star absorbs his energy but doesn't awaken, leaving him angry and disappointed. Lu Shu opens his eyes, disappointed, but then looks ahead from the tree he's sitting on and sees chaos. He rushes towards the area, using his compass as a guide to the weird spiritual energy. When he gets there, he sees a tornado spinning around. Quickly, he covers himself with his own energy and tries to undo the tornado. Pushing through the wind, he reaches its core and smashes it into pieces, throwing them into the forest. Lu Shu heads towards where the caster is. The fiery wind melts some branches and destroys whatever it lands on. Lu Shu confronts the frustrated caster, who wants to fight but sees he is injured by the attack. The caster tries to cast another tornado at Lu Shu, but he disperses it before it can form. The caster runs, with Lu Shu giving chase with his sword. The caster tries to attack Lu Shu at an opening, but the sword is fast and slices his face. Scared, the caster sees his life flash before his eyes, imagining his own funeral. He crouches in pain but prepares a sand bullet, throwing it at Lu Shu. The sword tries to block it but isn't fast enough, and some sand bullets pass the sword, nearly hitting Lu Shu. The caster regrets underestimating Lu Shu, realizing he's a strong opponent. Just as one bullet almost hits him, Lu Shu awakens his celestial map, discovering the next level to awaken the 7th star. The star awakens and flies to him, enlightening him and appearing as a wand. Lu Shu unlocks the star as he understands the emotions of the soul, experiencing happiness, sadness, anger, and fear all at once. He throws the wand, piercing through all the sand bullets and hitting the enemy, killing him instantly. The enemy disappears into the ground, turning into sand. The souls of the enemy fly through the air, and Lu Shu watches as nearby spirits sense the enemy's spirit disappearing. The next morning, Lu Xiaoyu finally finds Lu Shu and is happy to see him. He explains the details about the spy situation to her. They spot some spies on tree branches acting as lookouts. Lu Xiaoyu suggests using her animals to attack, but Lu Shu tells her to wait. They need to know the spies' numbers and strength first, so he decides to investigate. She asks how they will communicate, and he plans to use a squirrel as an information carrier. Approaching where the spies are, Lu Shu sees a guy reaching the clearing. 3 lookouts jump down, and the guy makes signals with his hands. The lookouts mimic their signals, showing he passed and is allowed through. Remembering the spy saying the code is the 3rd digit of their zodiac sign, Lu Shu wonders what his own code is. He disguises himself as one of them and approaches the clearing. The lookout appears, and he proceeds to make the signs, worried if they're correct. The lookout mimics his signs, indicating he passed and can proceed. Entering a cave, Lu Shu emerges on the other side, finding a pink landscape and a large pink tree the center of the ruin. Seeing the others, he joins them. The leader announces they reached the ruin first, declaring victory. Lu Shu realizes their number is too much for him to take on alone. Lu Shu senses their spiritual energy as he investigates them. He notices some have little energy, with a few being C classes and others D classes. As he continues looking around, he comes across 4 who were examining the tree. He smiles as he senses that these 4 have no spiritual energy. He turns to leave, but his senses tingle. He realizes the 4 aren't lacking spiritual energy. Instead, they're blocking it and seem very strong. One of them examines the tree, revealing a passage on the other side blocked by branches and roots, each about 2 meters thick. He explains the tree closes during the day and opens at night. The spy leader tells the guy they can't wait until night, fearing Chen Bailey might arrive soon. He orders the guy to force the tree open. The guys cast 2 fireballs at the tree, causing an explosion. When the smoke clears, the hole they created is immediately covered up by roots. They realize the plant is reducing the impact of their power. Lu Shu sees this and decides it's best to delay them until Chen Bailey arrives. Liang Qi suddenly sees Lu Shu and recognizes him. He calls out to him, and the others also recognize him. The leader asks what's happening. Liang Qi explains how he tried to burn Lu Shu, but he wasn't affected. The priest mentions Lu Shu followed them on the tour bus. The leader orders his men to surround Lu Shu, drawing their swords at him. Lu Shu ignores them and walks towards the leader, but the men stop him. Lu Shu makes the codename sign and says he uses Lily as a pseudonym. He claims to have something important to report. The leader is convinced he's part of them after one of the men confirms Lu Shu's description of having a pseudonym. They allow him to speak. Lu Shu tells the leader that Chen Bailey is dead, shocking everyone. The leader asks how he knows, and Lu Shu says he saw it with his own eyes. He shows them a white sand recognized by the leader as deep sea white sand. Lu Shu explains a man drilled the sand into Chen Bailey, causing him to die from blood loss. The man fled after being injured by Chen Bailey's flying sword, taking the sand as proof. The leader asks about Chen Bailey's body, and Lu Shu says he tossed it into the pool to prevent the organization from finding it. The leader laughs heartily and announces to the people that Chen Bailey is dead, and they rejoice. He tells Lu Shu to follow him henceforth and promises to reward him when they return to God's Collection, their organization's name. The priest and Liang Qi conclude Lu Shu must have been a spy. Lu Shu confirms it, saying he was sent by the organization and couldn't blow his cover, especially when Liang Qi was in trouble with the dragnet. The leader agrees, emphasizing the organization's mission is paramount. He tells Liang Qi not to take it to heart, as the organization has accepted him, but now he has to prove himself. Liang Qi agrees to do what they ask. Liang Qi goes to the tree and begins burning it, but the roots won't budge. He keeps burning it, and the priest approaches, asking why he's doing it and suggesting he could refuse. Liang Qi says he can't betray the organization since they saved him, but the priest should trust his decision to work for them. The leader receives information and yells at Liang Qi to stop. They've been informed that students from the Dayuan class made it into the center ruin. Lu Shu is happy to see his comrades. The leader approaches them at the entrance, and Liang introduces himself as a lieutenant of the dragnet. The leader shows his own ID. Liang asks how they arrived early, having seen a flare of flame when they entered. The leader explains they're investigating as intruders made it into the ruin, and due to last night's incident, they must be cautious. One of the classmates tells Liang they encountered disruption in their formation. The leader says they will investigate before entering, which Liang accepts. He leaves, but his men receive orders to attack the students. Lu Shu intervenes, sending his furry friend. As the men are about to attack the students, the furry friend reaches Liang and begins explaining the situation with signs. Liang gets the message and sees their attack plan, alerting Cao just in time before she's attacked. She dodges the attack and counterattacks, and the other students take out the one who tried to attack her. Liang announces they are under attack and prepares to fight. The students gear up, and a fight ensues between them and the spies. The leader begins to question how the students found out they were spies. The furry friend returns to Lu Shu's side, and he's glad everything worked out, trusting Zhang to handle the situation. The leader orders his men to attack since they outnumber the students. The students are being overwhelmed. One is almost attacked, but Cao saves him. Zhang orders them to fight back to back and not separate. Lu Shu gives instructions to Furry, drawing a sign in his palm. Furry goes to deliver the message. Lu Zioyu arrives with her animal friends and sees the fight has started but hasn't seen Lu Shu's signal. Furry arrives and shows her what Lu Shu drew a go-ahead sign. The spies think they have the students surrounded, but then the animals charge in and start taking out the spies. Lu Zioyu gives Zhang a thumbs up, and he announces the animals are their allies to the others, turning the tide of the fight in their favor. The leader is furious and orders Liang Qi to continue burning the roots while the others join the fight. Lu Shu yells at Liang Qi to keep burning the roots. Zhang breaks through the fight and makes his way to the leader, but he gives over the fight to Liang Qi. Liang Qi counters with a phoenix attack, which Zhang leaps over to confront him, but the phoenix flies back and burns Zhang. Another guy throws ninja stars at a weakened Zhang, but Cao jumps in, saving him by blocking the stars. The spies surround both Zhang and Cao, ready to attack. One sneaky spy plans to ambush them with ninja stars, but Lu Shu summons his keg and uses it to control the spy, making him throw the stars at his own men. Lu Shu then labels him a spy, knocking him out before he can defend himself. The leader announces there's no time to waste, so they proceed to the ruin. He takes his sword, and Lu Shu senses it isn't ordinary. The leader is a class B, with a single slash from his sword. The leader destroys and burns through the roots, preventing them from regenerating. The leader and his men jump down the entrance. Lu Shu worries about Lu Xiaoyu, but goes down the entrance. Lu Xiaoyu sees this and doesn't want to be left behind, so she tries to follow him, but the spies stop her. The other members of Dragnet finally reach the center, and the spies begin to retreat, all of them trying to force their way down the tree entrance. The leader, his men, and Lu Shu are making their way inside when one of them is grabbed by the neck by a vine and strangled, frightening them. Liang Qi tries to push through to join the group, but they push him away. Seeing the Dragnet members approaching, he quickly creates a firewall to keep them back, but an official jumps through the fire, ready to fight him. Liang Qi is about to cast fire at him when an acquaintance blows blue dust at his face, weakening him and undoing the firewall. Liang Qi calls him a traitor and reports him to the official. The official kicks Liang Qi, knocking him out. The officials capture all the spies. Zhang leaves them with the official, and Zan continues to follow him. They head down the entrance, and Lu Xiaoyu follows them, trying to force her bore down the entrance. Zhang and his group walk through the tree, wondering where the spies went, when Cao points to someone wrapped in a vine. They go to take a closer look and find a person swallowed up by the vines. Suddenly, creatures made of vines attack Zhang, but Cao saves him by stabbing the creature. They start fighting the creatures, easily destroying them. But then things get worse as the ground rumbles and a huge flower emerges with vines that start capturing them one by one. Zhang cuts through the vines, and Cao does the same, proving too strong for them. However, one spy captured by the flower's vines is almost eaten by the huge flower. Lu Xiaoyu comes to the rescue with her boar, riding into the flower and hitting it, causing the flower monster to tumble over. This reveals the flower's core, and Zhang clears the vines for Cao, who leaps into the air and throws her spear at the core, shattering it. The flower monster is eliminated, and those captured by its vines are freed. One asks Zhang if that's the formation's eye, but he says they would have reacted differently if they were facing the formation's eye. Lu Xiaoyu eagerly asks which direction Lu Shu went. Meanwhile, the spy group is being captured by the vines. Lu Shu sees the vine creatures attacking those with high spiritual energy, even pushing one fighting against a creature into its mouth. The others try to save themselves or their comrades from the vines. The leader tells them to gather around him, and they all do, emitting a spiritual energy shield that scares off all the creatures. He tells them to stay close, promising to retrieve the formation's eye himself and warning that anyone who leaves the shield won't be protected. Lu Shu is forced to walk among them and doesn't want to. He wonders how to escape and gets the idea to create a stinky item, causing them all to start complaining and earning himself negative points. However, they don't stop, as they come prepared with gas masks to avoid the smell, which the leader attributes to a plant emitting it. Suddenly, the creatures start appearing again, not scared of the spiritual energy shield around them. The leader says the smell must have attracted them and declares they need to find out who's responsible. The men start blaming one another, and Lu Shu smushes the stinky tofu on one of their clothes. Soon, the barrier fails, and the leader orders everyone to run. As the creatures start attacking them, Lu Shu continues with his sneaky plan using the stinky tofu, but one catches him red-handed and calls Lu Shu a spy. Lu Shu smushes the tofu in the guy's face and runs away. The creatures attack him, but he slices through them easily. Lu Shu summons more stinky tofu and throws it at them, causing the creatures to attack each other. The guy fights them off and then goes after Lu Shu, but Lu Shu, with his back turned, summons Corpse Dog, which cuts the guy's sword in half, causing him to fall hard onto the ground. However, the guy doesn't stop and picks up the broken blade to attack again, but Lu Shu controls Corpse Dog to pounce from behind, killing him. He follows the compass to the center of the ruin. he sees the leader and two of his men entering the center. The leader lights up the center with a flare. Lu Shu spies on them, sensing the vine sand that collects energy from the trees in the forest, channeling it all to the huge flower in the room. One suggests they cut the flower to prevent the formation eye from fully developing. But the leader says with Chen Bailey dead and the students likely to be defeated by the ruined creatures, they have time to find a solution. Lu Shu laughs because he knows none of that will happen. He sneaks into the room, but the leader senses him and turns, sending a slash at him with his sword. Lu Shu almost gets hit but dodges in time. They surround him, demanding to know who he is. Lu Shu stands and says he's a lieutenant at Dragnet Counterintelligence, briefly showing his ID and closing it quickly so they can't see. This annoys them, earning him some negative points. The leaders say Dragnet doesn't have such a department, but Lu Shu insists they do, and that counterintelligence is responsible for finding spies. He claims the department is under his jurisdiction, a name that seems to strike the leader. The leader gives them one last chance to drop their weapons. As the leader charges at him, Lu Shu pulls out the seal, which emits a bright light and temporarily blinds them. By the time the light disappears, Lu Shu is gone, running in the opposite direction. They chase after him, closing in, but he leaps into the air and unleashes his sword. They block his attacks, and he uses the sword to fight them off while summoning spears, throwing them at the leader. The leader counters all the spears effortlessly, showing no signs of injury at all. Lu Shu summons a sword from his inventory and prepares to fight the leader. The leader laughs, taunting Lu Shu, saying he's just going to die in vain. Undeterred, Lu Shu focuses and concentrates, unleashing the energy of his sword skillfully. He summons a cumulus cloud, and a drop of rain falls on his sword, which he directs towards the leader. The water transforms into a sword, but the leader blocks it with his own sword and retaliates with a swift slash towards Lu Shu's neck. However, Lu Shu manages to dodge and counter, slicing the leader in the neck. The other two adversaries prepare to attack together, realizing they've underestimated Lu Shu. When Lu Shu attempts to repeat his trick with the rain, it fails this time. They are about to overwhelm him when the ground starts to rumble. Looking up, Lu Shu sees Lu Xiaoyu arriving with the other students. He's relieved to see her back, but suddenly, the entrance is blocked by vines, and the formation Eye Guard has awakened and blocked their escape. The leader orders the other two to sacrifice their lives to him, and without hesitation, their blood flows into him, transforming his body with their life force. Lu Shu finds himself in a tight corner, fighting against both the leader and the formation Eye Guard, who has emerged from the flower monster. Lu Shu tries to attack with his sword, but it's not fast enough to cut through the vines as the monster sends its tendrils his way. He does his best to evade, but with the leader and the vines attacking simultaneously, Lu Shu struggles to defend himself. He's punched and knocked around, finding it increasingly difficult to keep up. Desperate to escape, Lu Shu tries to reach the entrance, but the leader punches him in the gut, and the vines ensnare him, pulling him towards the monster's mouth. Lu Shu fears this might be the end for him. Meanwhile, outside, Lu Xiaoyu and Zhang are trying to remove the vines blocking the entrance. Lu Xiaoyu cries out, fearing Lu Shu is dead. Suddenly, someone enters the cave and cuts the vines, saving Lu Shu. The monsters turn towards the new threat, revealing it to be Ni Ting, whose arrival shocks the leaders. With incredible speed, Ni Ting swiftly moves towards the monster and ends its life effortlessly. The leader, now flowing as blood around the vines, boasts about his unstoppable power as a top-level B-class and prepares to eliminate Lu Shu. Just as he's about to strike, Ni Ting intervenes, countering his attack and eliminating him with spiritual energy. Lu Shu thanks Ni Ting and asks why he didn't intervene sooner. Ni Ting explains that he wanted to see Lu Shu in action. Lu Shu jokingly asks if he performed well, and Ni Ting acknowledges his potential, while suggesting there's always room for improvement. Before leaving, Ni Ting reveals he has already locked the formation Eye and invites Lu Shu to visit him when he returns. As the ruin begins to disappear, everyone is transported back to the real world. Zhang and the others rush to Lu Shu, relieved that he's okay. Lu Xiaoyu rides towards him on her boar and jumps into his arms for a hug, tears streaming down her face. Overwhelmed with relief, she explains that she thought he had died. Lu Shu reassures her that he's fine and that everything is alright now. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.